Welcome to the whole note. I know I have different hair. I'm sorry. It is still me, I swear. Today, I have a very special panel. I have been looking forward for this panel since the start of this podcast. To be very, very candid, there's a person that is on this panel that inspired me to make this podcast and panel. So I will introduce them very, very shortly. Today we're having a high school theater teacher talk, and I have three very, very remarkable high school theater teachers that are here with me, and they will introduce themselves now. First up, we have Michael Dendy. Go ahead and tell the audience about yourself.
All right. I am Michael Dendy. I currently teach at Washington County High School in Sandersville, Georgia. I've been teaching for going into my 7th year. I've been at 4 different schools, so I have a lot of information that I've gleaned and gathered and put in from all of my experiences, and I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. Next, we have the inspiration of the podcast and of this panel, Megan McFadden. Megan,
my goodness.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What an introduction already. Thank you. I am Megan McFadden, and I teach at Northeast High School in Clarksville, Tennessee. Teaching at my school is really special because it is the high school that I graduated from. So it's really cool to get to teach in the same classroom that I was a student in. I've been teaching for, I believe, 12 years. Only 2 of those have been as a high school theater teacher. I taught English for a very long time, and I did the after-school drama club at my middle school. And working with high schoolers is just the dream. I love my job and love what I do.
Thank you. And next, we have the teacher that is from my high school. Granted, he wasn't my theater teacher because I am old as dirt, but I had to have him on here because I absolutely love him. Jackson Long, tell the people about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jackson Long. I'm in my 11th year of teaching theater. I've taught at 2 different schools. I've been at Westlake I'll be going into my 10th year at Westlake. I also taught at Williamsport High School in Pennsylvania for a year. I teach a mixture of classes every year. It's different. Just whatever is open is open. This past year, I focused more on communications and multimedia in the classroom and still did the after-school theater program.
Is that like a thing for like everyone? Does everybody like teach multiple different subjects?
And when Michael was here, he can tell this too, because they had 2 theater teachers as well. But there was always we had 2 theater teachers. So one always gets classes that if we don't have enough theater classes on our schedule for 2 teachers, then we get media. We'll sometimes get Avid or something else.
Or speech is what I had.
Or speech or film study. It actually is pretty cool. I'm not dissing that at all. It's very refreshing and gives you a new curriculum to kind of refresh and renew yourself as a teacher.
Awesome. Now, we have all been through what I call the year from hell, 2020.
Yes.
So the first question I have for you is, what was it like to teach theater during the pandemic?
Difficult. I mean, how do you teach theater to a computer screen? How do you do it? You know, and I mean, there are thousands of teachers across the nation that have figured out a way to do it, and we all did something differently. I was very fortunate that my school was in person with a mixture of online students. So I actually had a lot of the in-person connection and with the students all year long. We never went out for COVID completely, which was a blessing for us. But then the students that were online, it was like, how do you get them engaged with what's going on in the classroom? So I really shifted my entire curriculum this year, where I just kind of went project-based, which is not the ideal for theater, but you had to do what you had to do this year. And for me, it was projects. And while also still mounting shows, I was one of the few in Georgia still able to mount shows. We were the first school to mount a production during the pandemic in Georgia. So that was something big for us. So just that's kind of what I dealt with. It was difficult, but we got through it.
Megan?
Yeah, when we first got the understanding of what the year was going to look like for us, we started off in person, but the message was you are to stay as far away from these children as possible, because if you get contact traced, you're going to be out of school for a very long time. So stay away from them. And in a subject where, for my classroom, the beginning of the year, we spend so much time forming relationships because those kids, if they're just meeting each other, are not comfortable yet. So many of my students are little freshman babies that are already insecure and they're in high school for the first time. So we have to spend a large amount of time trusting each other, making relationships. And when you're not in physical proximity to each other, that is incredibly difficult. However, I feel like the advantage that we had over so many other teachers is that in theater, you have to be flexible. You have to change the plan at any moment and do it correctly. And so I just said, we're going to go into this completely committed to the process. Okay, we can't connect physically. We're going to connect in every other way that we possibly can. We're going to build relationships on a virtual space if we can't do them, with touch. In the beginning of the year, one of my favorite activities when we start to get to know each other, I make them go give everyone in the classroom a high five, so that they get that physical, safe touch with one another. So we had to find out, how do we make safe connections in that virtual space? We went online a couple of times because the school system shut down. And yeah, trying to figure out how to bring the theatrical experience. It looked different. We spent more time analyzing theater that exists, analyzing movies and characters, rather than playing those things out. But like I said, I made a commitment to these students that they were going to get the best possible version of this class with all of the limitations that we had. And after 6 months of not doing anything, we're lazy and we're not committed themselves to the process. So I had to do a lot of soul searching to ask myself, how do I bring them back in? And unlike math, unlike social studies, they're hungrier for the fun things I'm going to do with them. So by the end of the year, we were working on stamina, building up their interest in learning and getting back into the swing of things, which is where the work's going to take us in the next year.
Mm-hmm. Jackson?
Yeah, definitely agree on that, Megan, because the analyzing part where you were focusing more on pieces that have already been produced and focusing more on analyzing rather than creating. It was a crazy year. But the best thing about it, not that it's the best thing, but everybody was going through a crazy year. So it was very inspiring on how professionals and celebrities and Broadway had so many workshops and stuff that normally I would never be able to afford, but these things were being offered for free. So there was a lot of positive, I think, that came out of this here in a weird way. But we were virtual almost the entire year. At most, I think by the end of the year, I had 2 kids at most in my classroom, and the rest were online. And it was very sad at times because you could tell, especially those theater kids, those after school theater kids, they just wanted to do something. And to do it through Zoom, it was just very, very, I don't know how to say it, but borderline depressing, because like you could see them and they're interacting through Zoom and you're just like, wow, I wish we could have this in class, because if you're doing all this through just the screen, imagine what you would be doing in the classroom. So I'm not going to say it was all bad, because I did learn a lot this year, and I think my kids learned a lot, but definitely had to adapt constantly. Every day changed, every week changed. It was just a constant adaptation.
That is actually a great segue into the next question. What was one of the things that you learned about yourself and your students during this experience?
How flexible we all can be. Like, you had to change what you were doing every single day. If something didn't work, if the internet went down, what do you do? Like, you now have students that you can't teach that day. And that happened 5, 6, 7 times throughout the year. The internet was just down. Or, we're having to deal with Chromebook issues. I became an IT technician this year. Like, how do I fix this Chromebook? Okay, let me do this. Instead of having to send 5 students out, I had to learn how to fix them, and students were stepping up, doing that, like helping their friends. Oh, how do I do Google Drive, Google Classroom? Ask them over there, they can help you, like just that collaboration, how much they could work with each other and be flexible with all this technology that was thrown at us. And I think seeing that growth and that development was something really interesting this year. We're like, we're dealing with a pandemic, but we're also kind of giving you these weird practical skills to go into a new, career with technology. Like, how to do some basic stuff, keep going with that, So, I mean, this flexibility is what we really learned this year, like how flexible we can be and how quickly we can change what we're doing just like that.
Megan?
The biggest takeaway from myself and my students is the same. This year gave us the space and time to reflect upon ourselves.
Ooh, yes.
I did a lot of soul searching, and because of the need to be flexible, I learned so many personal things about my students that I selfishly did not take the time to learn before that. I've always been close with my students, and they confide things in me, but I really had an opportunity this year to get to know them in such a more personal manner. And you're realizing that you have these students in your classrooms that have these home lives that are terrible, and they were stuck inside of them for months, unable to escape. And they're just happy to be at school surrounded by their friends and teachers that care about them. And then I'm finally learning all of these awful things that they've gone through. And that helps put into perspective for me that our work connects so much to humanity that I need to remember that these teenagers are humans, and I need to get to know their humanity and what's going on with them more. It allowed me to realize that worrying about strict due dates on assignments and things, is that the most important thing? Are you being an effective teacher by demanding that the work gets turned in on a certain time when you've got a kid that is working every single night till midnight because he is contributing to the money for the household? That baby is tired, he needs to go to sleep, he can worry about my assignment later. So yeah, just that soul searching and understanding, not to be too philosophical here, but just layers that we're all experiencing. That was a huge takeaway for me.
I mean, truthfully, what is theater but philosophy, especially when we're analyzing everything? Jackson?
Yeah, it's one thing that I learned about myself and as a teacher is I need to, because I had the time this year, I gave a lot more valuable feedback, I feel like, as an educator, because we were using Flipgrid, so the kids would hand in basically record their rehearsal, and then I would watch it. And I was able to give 20 kids immediate feedback based on that video. And I learned as an educator, I need to be doing this in the classroom. It's easy to be like, okay, everyone go into your own corners of the auditorium and rehearse. But where's my feedback, that daily feedback, or even not even daily, sometimes just weekly feedback on, okay, I see you doing this in your monologue. That's good. That's good. Keep doing, So one thing I realized is that I do need to focus more on giving more often feedback. Not necessarily more feedback, but just more often as they go through the rehearsal process. And I think that what I try to tell my students is this pandemic has taught us how important art is. And that's one thing that I hope that they grasp from this year, is that we all turn to Netflix, we all turn to TV shows, we all turn to movies, music, all this art and theater through YouTube and everything. And that art is so important to our daily lives. And I think we all realized it because that's all we had to do, you know, for how long. So that is one thing I always knew that, but it really reinforced that idea that how important art is.
One of the things that I started doing during the pandemic was watch National Theater's YouTube because every week they would show an entire play. I want to say the one that I watched that I was just like mouth dropped was A Streetcar Named Desire with Gillian Ferguson and Ben Foster. And I'm over here like I would have never pictured Ben Foster as Stanley, but now I can't unsee it.
that production is next level.
Oh
I show it to my
God.
advanced kids, and we talk about Streetcar because it's one of my favorite plays. That production is next level. Like I want to experience it as much as I can. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it.
If it's still on YouTube, I believe they only like put it on there for like a certain amount of time and then it's like gone.
Well. We have ways.
Love it. All right, now this is a question that I have been asking a lot of people, just because I feel like when you start high school theater, everyone's at different levels. So, what is the one thing you wish students already knew prior to coming to you for theater education?
Mine is not going to be your typical answer because I've been thinking about this one for a while. And it's something I've really noticed with students over the past few years. The one thing I wish they knew was it's okay to fail. Like, so many students are like, it has to be perfect. It has to be perfect the first time. I'm like, but it doesn't. We have 3 months to put this together. Try something. It might not work, and that's okay. But it could, and it's going to be something amazing, you know? And so many students are just scared to fail because people have conditioned all of us to think you've got to get it right the first time or it doesn't matter, you know? But theater's about exploring and changing and growing. And if we always get it right the first time, what are we doing? You know, like, sure, that would cut down the rehearsal process and that would be fantastic for all of us. But there's no fun in that. You know, we go in, we do a show and we're done. You get to rehearse, you get to build a family, you get to build a group of friends, and you all fail together and grow together. And I think that's something that would be so beneficial, not just in theater, but throughout all the subjects. Like, you got that math problem wrong. Okay, that's fine. Let's see how we can fix it. You didn't do so well on this paper. Okay, let's see what we can do to fix it. You know, it's not a bad thing. It's just a part of growing and changing. So I think that's what I would say to that.
Love it. Megan?
My answer is fairly similar. You know, children are very silly when they're very little, and they're very open to play and role playing and not worrying about what people think about them. And then they go through puberty, and suddenly that completely changes. In relation to being open to failing, I wish that they would come into my classroom a little bit more open to trying new things and looking stupid. And, you know, that takes a lot of, like I said, relationship building to get them to that point. And then there's some kids that they want to be out there, put themselves out there and be silly. And the self-consciousness, the judgment from each other. That is something that exists now that did not when we were in school. They've got cell phones and they can do a sneaky video of somebody trying something,
including the teacher.
Yes, and it gets out there.
We don't have cell phones at our school.
Oh wow, you're lucky.
They start from elementary school and are like, if you bring a cell phone into this school, you are going to ISS for 3 days.
Wow.
And it was the biggest culture shock starting the school this year, because I was like, hey, can you take a photo of this thing at your house and show me? They were like, we can't bring our phones to school. I was like, you can't what? It was the weirdest experience, but it's great because they're there and my work got turned in this year. It's very strange, but yes, to agree with the cell phone thing, they do record us.
Yeah, and it's a betrayal of that trust of believing that it's a safe space. One person recording something silly one time, that the victim, never want to try anything again. So yeah, I wish when they came into my room that they automatically felt that safety of being able to be themselves. But I know that that's never going to happen. I know that that's a process and it's part of growing up.
Yeah.
Jackson?
Well, I'm excited because we all pretty much have a similar answer, because mine is, I want them to know that you should feel uncomfortable to grow. You have to feel uncomfortable to grow as an actor, to be imaginative, to play, as Megan said. So very similar to everyone else's response. So I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head on that one.
So I asked this question to a friend of mine who wanted to be on this, but he was like, I'm getting married that day, so I can't. And I'm like, well, I can't make you change your wedding date. And one of the things he said was, he was like, confidence. I wish kids had a little bit more confidence in themselves. And I guess that goes right along with everything else that you guys have been saying. Being silly, looking crazy, just being an absolute actor at that point. So the next question we sort of already answered, so I'm going to skip that and go on to the next one, which I am looking forward to. What is something you wish to push going forward in your educational tactic?
Why don't we switch up the order this time so we don't all take Jackson's answers?
It's okay. I don't think you guys have my answer for this one. So
well, I don't really know how to answer this question. So, Megan, you want to go first? I want to go first. I want to hear other people's answers on this one.
I don't mind going first.
Awesome.
It's interesting because Jackson already touched on my answer to this. I am very inconsistent with giving feedback to my students, especially we're in the process of the task. And what I hope to start doing is when they are working on a monologue or they're working on a partner scene, that I am going to them and watching them rehearse and providing feedback in the moment more, so that when they do perform it for the class, when it's for a grade, that they've already, had a sounding board to help them fix the things that are problems. I'm a little too focused on making sure that nobody's dying or that nobody is, making babies in my classroom. That, I don't take the time to sit down with them as much. And yeah, that feedback is so valuable. They want to hear the things that they're doing well. They might not want to hear the things that they need to work on, but they need to. So that's a tactic in my classroom I definitely need to work on.
Jackson?
So I honestly, and this has always been my philosophy, and I just want to keep at it, but my goal as a theater teacher, especially a director, is to give as many kids as possible the chance to be on stage in high school. And why I said I don't think everybody agrees with that is because sometimes the quality does suffer because of the quantity. But my philosophy has always been quantity over quality in high school theater. Because if they don't get the chance to now, then when will they? And when will they get that spark? Like, yeah, I want to keep doing this. If I don't give that opportunity to every student that wants to do it, then I feel like I'm not doing them justice as their high school teacher. So kind of against the whole idea, oh, it's just high school theater. I don't think I want to be that low in the ball game, but it is high school theater. So this is your chance to be on stage. And if you like it here, then you can go to the next level. But I wouldn't suggest anyone to start in college or start in community theater, you have your summer programs and stuff, but I wouldn't just be like, go audition for that huge play. I would say, why don't you start smaller in summer programs and then try to work your way up. But that's kind of my goal and my, what I want to keep chugging along with.
Beautiful, beautiful. Dendy?
I think what I continue to work on as an educator is giving all of my students a voice in the room. Something very strange happened to me about 2 years ago. I do this journal every day with the intro classes, where we watch a clip from a musical and we talk about the plot and everything about it. And I showed a clip from Beauty and the Beast, and it had an African American belle, which I have a largely African American population. So I was like, I actively try to find those that go against type. And a lot of their journals said, why was Belle black? Why was Belle black? I'm like, why does she have to be? Or why does she, like, why does it matter? She's a fictional character. There's nothing about her character that has to be white, black, Asian. She can be whatever she wants to be. So that was something we really talked about. And I was like, for so many years, theater has pushed the white people to the front, and that's what you're used to seeing. But I'm trying to peel that back and show you something different. And it was just a really good conversation about, yes, there are certain roles that have to be certain genders, races, stuff like that. But there are roles like Belle that, yes, has to be a female, but other than that, doesn't matter. So I'm really trying to actively think and do shows that give all of my students a voice. And if we do a show that's typically cast a certain way, I try to change it up as much as I can. If we're used to seeing white people in these roles, why not put someone else in there? Who is best for the role at the end of the day? That's who I'm going to put in. And I think just doing those shows, exposing them to those shows that give them a voice that they're not used to having. I think that's something I'm continually working on and being very cognizant when I'm casting class readings or casting shows or choosing shows that we're going to watch, just really finding things that are a little bit out of the normal.
That's probably literally the most beautiful answer I've ever heard. I'm over here trying not to cry because of that. Because as a person of color, that was one of my big things in theater in general is, I can't audition for that show because that's primarily an all-white cast. Or, like, okay, I had the privilege of doing 1776, which I never thought in my life I would do. And I was like, I'm doing the show now. But I'm gonna go off on a slight tangent really quick
Please do, because he just introduced a lot of topics that
because yeah. And I was trying not to go there with this just because the world is really, really crazy. But you know what? We might as well. I actually want to give praise to someone because my little theater sister, I have known her since she was like 7 years old, and she's always loved doing theater. She always loved doing theater. The first show that she and I did was Once on This Island, and I gravitated to her, and I just wanted to hug her repeatedly. Her name is Angela Alexander, and Jackson, when I saw her in Leader of the Pack, I was bawling because it was the first time I actually saw her shine. And I was like, that's my baby. That's my baby. But yes, let us go on this tangent really quick. So, when is it okay to go against type? And when is it not okay to go against type?
I'll start with when it is always okay is any children's show, no matter what the role is. What I learned, we did Frozen Junior. Yeah, I sold out. Okay. And I'm glad I did because then the pandemic happened and we had money. Okay. Anyway.
I'm dealing with Frozen next year with the middle school, so I feel you.
And we had multiple casts, but they all ended up having a black Elsa, a white Anna. And I didn't see any the auditions. That's how it fit, the roles, the singers. That's how they killed it, and that's how it was. And we did this a couple people came to the show, they loved it, and they wanted us to come to an event. So I brought my Elsa and my Anna set of them. And these kids, and this is kind of just a reminder to myself that it doesn't matter, especially with these types of shows. There's like 4 little white boys, and they're talking to our Elsa, who's Black, and they're probably 4 or 5, and they're just like, "Are you the real Elsa?" And they just had no, like, completely colorblind. And it was just a reminder that the only people in the audience that probably cared about that were the adults that have issues of their own. The kids, all the kids that were there, they didn't even realize it. And in my head, I'm like, okay, is this gonna make sense? They're sisters. Like, I don't care about blind casting, but should I make them both Black, make them both white? Is it gonna make sense? No one, they didn't care. They didn't even notice, and it was just a reminder that in that type of theater, which I think a lot of high schools do, it doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Dendy, we'll go with you next.
Okay. I'm going to talk about a very specific experience where we had to go with type because that's what I was going to do. Jackson, I think, knows I've done Once on This Island. I did it when I was in Maryland. And there was an argument about Timoon where someone wanted to leave it open to casting a white Timoon. And I was not having it. I was like, this is Once on This Island. It is a show about race and struggles, and like, I'm not doing it. If you want me to cast a white Timoon, I'm not directing it. And it came to conversations with the principal, and a lot of stuff went down behind the scenes that I'm not going to go into, but it was something I was adamant about, where we're going to cast a Black Timoon. Everything else can be up in the air in that show, in my opinion. But that was the one thing I was very adamant about. And I think shows like that are written for people of color, that it explicitly states in the script, this person is Asian, this person is African American, this person is white. Like, you need to play those as they are. But there are shows that leave it completely up in the air and blind. So I think fighting those battles and not casting a white Timoon in a show, I think is something very important, because it gives representation to the people that need it,
And that the show was written for.
And that the show was written for, yes.
Megan?
I teach in a school that is majority minority. When you look at the students in my classroom, their faces are brown more than they are white. Unfortunately, in my community, in those houses, theater is not a valued after-school activity. They are very, my school especially, very sports-centered. All of our sports programs are very, very strong. So the kids who are auditioning for my plays after school are mostly white kids. This is not something that I have had a lot of experience or issue with in the past, because my pool of Black students, Hispanic students, is just not large for being in my shows. I do have some, but it's definitely not as large as the white kids that are wanting to do theater after school. And I know that is something I need to do better at recruiting, getting those kids interested, because in my classroom, they're phenomenal actors. But when I say, hey, do you want to audition for this play? No, I can't. I'm on the basketball team. I can't do that. When that situation arises, my philosophy has always been, as has already been stated, if the character is explicitly anything other than white, that character is only going to be cast that way. As I don't have a large pool of those students, there's lots of shows that I avoid. They've been begging me for years to do Hairspray, and I just keep telling them, we don't have it. We can't do Hairspray. I would love to, but you've got to find me more kids that want to be in shows. Something that's also interesting that I've had to learn, back when I was in high school, the slapstick comedy that existed in movies, men dressing as women was was a very big comedic thing that was happening for the longest time. That now I think when you look back on those things, it's not as funny anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, early in my career with my middle schoolers, it was a very common thing for me to put a boy in a female role, dress him up with a wig, and then the audience is just delighted at how hilarious that is. And I've learned that that is not funny, and that is something that needs to change. So even considering gender of a character, when that is and is not okay, to do the opposite. Um, I have more girls than I do boys, so we're all the time making girls do boy characters, but it's not a hurtful way. It's not making fun of that character. So yeah, as I have grown as a person, understanding what is and is not okay in those roles has definitely been a learning curve. I feel like the opposite, though. Most characters in most plays are written white because that's who's writing the plays. And I have no problem putting a child of color into those roles. We don't have to stick to the traditional, this that character is supposed to look like.
This is a beautiful, beautiful conversation, and I'm here for it. Okay, but I'm going to proceed. Being a high school theater teacher is hard because you have to cover so many different facets of theatrical development. What do you think is your strongest aspect and what is your weakest? And how are you planning on covering that ground? In other words, it's like we have to learn set design, light design, sound design, projection design, directing, acting. Not everyone is the jack of all trades.
Right. My answer is again kind of weird. I think my strongest aspect is actually organization. I am a very good organizer when it comes to productions and getting things laid out on a calendar. The rest of my department currently is not good at that, so we're working through that together. And I think just showing students that organization gets you a long way, honestly. And starting with getting your production organized and getting it ready to then be burst into the world, you know. So I think that's kind of my strongest suit right now. Probably my weakest would be honestly trying to teach costume design, because fabric is a different world to me and I just don't get it. And I tend to stray away from costuming. I'm like, can we just pull that or buy that, or can you just get that in your size for me? But we just hired a new elementary school teacher who does costuming, and I was like, she's the one. Let's hire her because I need her. So that's how I kind of made up that ground. I was like, I'm gonna hire this person to help us with costume design. But I'm also constantly like trying to teach myself different things, doing Halloween costumes, doing cosplay stuff. I'm consistently seeing what works, what doesn't. I'm best friends with a hot glue gun. Like, that works every time. At my last school, we actually had this saying with my students that I don't know where it came from. They say I said it, but it was, if it works for a drag queen, it'll work for us. So, I mean, they use hot glue all the time and look fabulous. So we're going to pull that hot glue gun and make it work, you know? So I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm really good at organization, really bad at costuming. Everything else kind of falls in between. And I'm constantly learning and educating myself on things to be better and to help my students be better.
Now, so this question actually came about because, again, of Megan.
Oh my gosh.
Well, okay, I'm going to be very candid. So how I met Megan was when Roxy Regional Theatre, where I work at, started their School of the Arts up again. I had a student in my stage management class, just one student, and it was Megan. So I prepared the lesson as if it was going to be a teenager. And when Megan walked in, I was like, all right, I'm going to have to change that now. And so we just got to talking, and she was like, yeah, I don't know much about stage management, and I want to be able to learn it and then reteach it to my kids. So I was like, got you. So I pretty much retooled the class to be me teaching a teacher how to teach stage management. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. As far as my strengths are concerned, my own personal background with my learning to become a theater teacher, I'm so much stronger on the acting side of things. Specifically, improv is my wheelhouse. I really enjoy teaching that with teenagers. I feel like I'm pretty good at getting them to come out of their shells in that process and make really bold choices, and we have a lot of fun. Um, when they clam up and get nervous, I think I'm really good at getting them to just keep it going and not to get out of their head. Yeah, in my personal schooling, anything that happened behind the scenes, I completely missed out on for lots of various reasons that could be its own podcast itself. But so, and I knew I've got to figure out how to be better at this. And out of all of the awful things that the pandemic brought, the best thing that it brought was the Roxy's opportunity for adults to come and learn. I had been wanting for years to introduce myself to Ryan, and I was always too shy and nervous to. I just wanted him to teach me everything that he knows, and I was too shy to approach him. And then it fell into my lap, and I took a stage management course. I took a set design course, a sound course, and learning so much. When I was in high school, I always skipped set building days when we would do them for the plays after school. I didn't go. I was the actress. I didn't have to go do the in my little high school brain. So I didn't know how to build a flat. And 37 years old, I finally learned how to use power tools, and I get to teach all of this to my students now and make my program stronger.
Jackson?
I'm right with Megan with acting, improvisation. Those are my strong points. Also playwriting. I really enjoy and love teaching playwriting. And I was going to say lighting. I think it's a generic answer. I think a lot of people who specialize in acting and that stuff suck at lighting and sound. Not so much sound. I have very little experience with sound, but zero lighting. But something I have realized in the past couple years specifically that I'm bad at, and it just bad, is when kids start crying during an audition.
Oh God.
Yes. And I just get so awkward. And I feel like no matter what I say, it's not the right thing to say. Mm-hmm. And it's just, yeah, I've realized that, you know what, thanks for the question, Kenny, because that has made me realize that is definitely a downfall. Luckily, the music director I'm working with right now, he usually like, oh, it's okay, come on. And I'm just like...
I feel like that should be a class on its own, is like how the people during auditioning.
Yeah.
Because like we recently just had our set of auditions, and there were a lot of people that were just scared, and I'm just like, wow, I have been in your shoes, and I don't even know how to help you with that. All I know how to do is let's do some breathing exercises to calm your nerves. But that,
right.
Let us be real, that probably works for like 5 seconds, but the moment you hit that stage, it all comes back. Mm-hmm. Oh, I guess that's more of a confidence thing again.
Mm-hmm. It is and it isn't, because you can have the most confident kid just have a bad audition and all of a sudden break down, and you're like, I've never seen this side of you, or I don't know you because you're in auditions or you're new and I don't know what would work for me to say right now. So yeah, that's
okay. The next question I got: what is the one thing you want your students to leave your program knowing?
I think for me on that is leave knowing that you can take chances and it's okay. So, again, we're so boxing these students into, this is your career path, this is your life path, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to go about it. Why? Really, nothing matters in the end. We're all gonna die in 90 years. Make the most of your life. Do what you want to do. That's kind of what I did, because my mom was always like, you're going to go to a community college and you're going to do that first, and you're going to go to 4-year college, and that's how you're going to. I was like, but I'm not. I'm going to go straight to the 4-year college. I'm going to major in theater. I'm going to do what I want to do. And it's worked out so far. Let's hope it keeps working out. But so many kids are scared to take chances. They're like, oh, I'm going to go into this career because it's safe. And I'm going to go do this because this is what my parents did. But what do you want to do? So I really try to like instill that confidence in them that you can do literally whatever you set your mind to and want to do. You just have to take that first step. And that first step can start your freshman year. It can start your senior year. It doesn't matter. It can start in your 20s, in your 30s. Restart your life whenever you're ready, you know? And I'm just really trying to instill that when you leave me, I've given you everything I can to let you know it's safe to take a chance on you and not what everybody else wants you to do.
We're going to switch this up a bit. Jackson.
Yes. Oh, because he had the same answer as me. That's why you did that. But more specifically, I don't focus on you can do theater as a career, that kind of stuff. I focus on you can do theater in addition to whatever you want to do. Like, just because you don't want to go study theater, just know, like, hopefully that you had that opening night feeling by being on stage. You know what it feels like to be in a show, to work closely with an ensemble. And if you want to feel that, you don't have to have a career in this. You can just do community theater. You can go onto that avenue of theater and still experience what you're experiencing. In addition to still going to be a doctor if your parents want you to be a doctor. And I think that's another thing that came from the pandemic is that, and TikTok, thanks TikTok, but we got to see the dancing doctor, the careers that don't usually do theatrical things. I feel like for some reason in the past year, those have really exploded. And just for the kids to know that this can always be there no matter what. This love for theater.
Mm-hmm. Megan?
Yeah, I understand that like 1% of my students might pursue theater post high school. I hope that they take away all of the soft skills that theater is going to teach them, that they will continue to use, that they'll know how to work in a group, that they'll know how to approach a large project and meet timelines. I hope that they gather the communication skills that they need to speak in front of a crowd, to have the confidence to negotiate a higher wage with their boss. I want them to leave with all of that goodness that makes a person well-rounded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those are some really brilliant answers. Thank you. So now we're going to get into what I call the nitty-gritty of high school theater, because Lord have mercy. What's the biggest drawback you have received as a as a theater educator?
I don't sleep a lot anymore. Let's start there. That and just like the disrespect we get. I'm gonna be real honest about it. Like, we as theater educators are not your normal like 7:30 to 3:30 educators that come in, do the job, and go home. We're there. Me personally, I don't get to work early because that's not me as a human being. I get there at 7:30 when I'm supposed to, but I don't leave till 9, 10 o'clock, you know, and then I got to do it all over again the next day. And so many teachers are just like, oh, we're here all the time. I'm like, I saw your car pull out at 3:30 yesterday. What do you mean you're here all the time? Don't try me, because I was here till 10, you know, and just that, oh, you're just doing theater. You just play games all the time. No, we don't. My students are writing papers. They're doing projects that span multiple weeks. Like, just so much disrespect from other teachers for what we do. And then those teachers want to come see our shows and then get in free. I was like, you want to get in free, but you can treat me. You can pay $5 like everybody else. I'm sorry. And it's just like stuff like that that really irks me. Like, I love what I do. I would not change what I do for anything, you know, but just that level of disrespect from the other teachers for what we do in our classrooms is just appalling sometimes.
Megan?
Yeah, the phrase, we're the redheaded stepchildren of the school. We, funding wise, we're always the forefront of money can be cut from our programs. Sports in my community are valued so much, even for teams that are okay. They'll get brand new uniforms every year. They'll get state-of-the-art stadiums, and then our theaters will sit with a light board that doesn't work and has not worked for over 20 years. And going back to what I said about those soft skills, I know that sports are going to teach kids great things that they need for life, but my program is too, and our students deserve to be treated the same way.
Jackson?
On a personal level, one drawback has been that I don't have, like Michael said, with the time commitment, I don't have time to act myself or, be involved with theatrical productions for myself. And I'm not sure how my life would be different if I could manage both those things, but I just don't foresee myself ever being able to manage teaching and directing theater and also doing shows on stage for myself acting. And another drawback, and I know that this is a universal issue with so many sports, everything, but the amount of complaints and with auditions and casting, and why didn't my kid get this role? Why didn't I get this role? That is one of the hardest things to deal with as an educator, because you always want to inspire, but there's only 8 speaking roles, so it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I want to give you a chance, but this person had a better audition, and I wish it was just that cut and dry and the conversation could be over. But of course you have to use it as a building experience, but with a teenage mindset, it's not going to be a building experience. You could say whatever brilliant philosophical theatrical thing you want, but they're still going to say Mr. Dendy hates me, and that's the bottom line. You know what I mean? Like, that's just their mindset.
If I had $1 for every time I heard that, I could retire.
And it becomes a real drawback when parents get involved and they involve your administration, and I know a lot of teachers go through that, theater teachers. I know.
And just to kind of speak on that, like, whole audition thing, one thing I've started doing very recently is with my advanced class, not my like intro, we have very candid discussions about auditions. I tell them why they didn't get in the show, and we do it in front of the class. We have a just one day round table discussion where you can ask me any questions about auditions. You can ask me about casting, and I'm going to tell you exactly why I didn't cast you or why I did cast you. And the complaints have basically stopped because they get to hear my rationale. I was in like things like, well, you had a lot of chemistry with this person, so I put you two together and it just clicked, and that just made sense for those roles. I put you two together and something was off, something didn't feel right, and we want what's best for the show, right? And I get them to say right back, and it just makes sense to them somehow, where you just really rationalize. And it's like an hour-long conversation where I'm just very candid about casting. And I think it can be, if it's done right, such a strong educational opportunity. And like I said, I had one complaint this last year about casting, and I sat down with that student individually. We talked, and they understood, and they auditioned for another show, and they got a role they wanted, and everything was fine. So take that as you will.
That's a great idea.
I tried that once.
Oh no!
With my friends acting kids, and needless to say, it all went well except one girl, and she ended in guidance. Her day ended in guidance, and I was like, "Great,
oh, Lord."
Yeah." So that definitely helps. It 100% helps to have the conversation. But there will always be that one kid.
Yep.
Always be that one kid.
Not everyone always wants to listen.
Yep.
So.
All right, let's go ahead and give some positivity back in here. What's the biggest reward you have received as a theater educator?
I mean, just seeing the kids finally click with a show and succeed when they didn't think they could. One of my biggest shows I've ever taken on was Sarah Rule's Eurydice. And when I gave those kids that script, they were like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, trust me. Just trust the process, trust me. And we went to nationals with that show. So just seeing any show just click with these students and they produce a product that they believe in and that they didn't think they could do. Seeing that, doing that, that's always the biggest reward for me. Just watching them succeed on any level, small, big things, whatever it is, that's always makes the long hours worth it.
Jackson?
Yeah, I'm gonna add on to Michael's for my response, because there's two ways that really becomes powerful. And kind of what you said, the first way is if it's a show that the kids have no idea what it is and the audience doesn't know what it is. And when that show comes together in that way and everyone's like, wow, that's an amazing show, I can't believe I had never heard of that show before, blah blah blah. That just is for you, your students, it's just the most rewarding thing. And also, I don't know if you guys are guilty of this, but when you pick a show just because you want to do it, not necessarily you have the people to do it, and
that's
you're like,
only how I pick shows.
This show is going to be terrible, but then it ends up like way better than you ever thought it could be. And I did Sister Act, and that's how that turned out. When I auditioned, when I picked Sister Act, I was just like, I just love the show. I want to do the music. I want to do some choreography. I want to make nuns costumes. Like, I just want to do the show. I don't care what it looks like or how it sounds. And then it just turned into like one of the best shows that I've seen myself do. And I was just like, whoa. Like it was just okay, yeah, that's what theater is. That's why I'm here, because you just go about the rehearsal, and for some reason it starts clicking because everyone's been doing what they need to be doing. And yeah.
I have to say though, Jackson, your Mother Superior, amazing.
Oh my gosh, I love her. Yeah. she's at AMDA. She did AMDA New York. Now she's at LA, finishing her studies at AMDA LA. She just went because COVID kind of delayed everything, so she's super excited. But yeah.
I just finished Sister Act this year, and I ended up in the show. I was Monsignor because we had a student drop out last minute, and I was like, well, I guess I'll do it.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say you were the Pope at the end, but
we didn't do a Pope. Okay. We didn't do a Pope. We were going to, but I was like, the costume's not in the budget, so
yeah.
Sorry.
It's only if you have a Pope costume laying around in the
right. But I mean, it was a lot of fun playing the Monsignor with the kids. They got to see me do what I'm telling them to do every day. You know, I'm like, I'm here with you. I'm backstage. I'm in a hot costume. We're doing this, you know, and it's such a fun show. Fun show.
It's an amazing show, actually. Yeah. Love that show.
Megan?
For me, it's the relationships that I make with these kids. When you're teaching them during the day and then spending so much concentrated time with them after school, they become very, a family. You become a family, and you get on each other's nerves, but you also love each other unconditionally, and we laugh so much. And I'm starting now to get to the point, because I taught at the middle school that feeds into my high school. So I've only been 2 years at this school, but I've known these kids since they were in the 6th grade. So I've known them for a very long time. And now they're getting to the point where they're becoming adults. And I'm finding that so many of them want to seek out adult friendships with me. And so I got to know them as children, and now I'm getting to know them as adults, and they're still an important part of my life. And they're just, that bond is just so incredibly special, and it just warms my heart that they want to continue to be a part of my life, because I desperately want to continue to be part of yours.
I will say this. There is a very, very special bond between a theater teacher and a student that even into their 30s and sometimes 40s, they still connect. I still talk to my high school theater teacher every once in a while. She recently commented on me getting this job. Last year, she was like, "Look at you, flourishing like I knew you would." And that was literally like the best comment ever. I cried like a baby. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. We got two more questions, and they're very, very simple. And this is if you can give out this information. I know a lot of people are like, I can't say this, but what shows do you guys have planned for next school year?
Well, my season has been fully announced. I think the kids would have murdered me had I not announced before we ended school. I am being very brave next year and taking on 5 shows. Yeah, we're doing 5 shows next year.
Whew.
Yeah, so we will start the year with our children's show, which is our advanced acting class. It's an in-class production, and we're doing a show called Press Start. It's a video game musical by Beat Press. If you don't know Beat by Beat Press, excellent shows for children to perform or for your high school students to perform for children. They're like an hour, very simple music, but it's all like video game characters, and they've ended up out of lives, and they have to create this like telethon situation to gain more lives to continue to play their games. It's a very fun little show. Then for one act, we are taking on Green Day's American Idiot, which is brave to say the least, because it is a 90-minute show that I've had to condense down to 50 minutes somehow. I've done it. It's a miracle. But we're taking on that in October. Then for our winter play, we'll be doing Neil Simon's Rumors. I'm very excited about that show. I have a really strong group of seniors that are probably going to take over that show. And then for our spring musical, we will be doing Grease. I did that in high school, and I never thought I'd be doing it again because it's so expensive. But here we are. I got a car for free somehow. So I will be making a Grease Lightning. If you're looking for one next year, we'll be renting it out to anybody watching. But yeah, we'll be doing a Grease Lightning. We'll be doing that show. And we're also doing that with the middle school. So we'll have a few middle schoolers come over and be in the show with us to really bridge that gap between our programs. And then we'll end the year with the advanced acting class again with a cabaret type thing where we're just going to let them get on stage and do stuff. It'll be tonight of singing, acting. We'll do some group numbers. They're very adamant about doing 96,000 from In the Heights. And I'm like, bruh, I don't teach music. That's going to be real hard, but we can try. I'm all for like letting y'all flourish and try, but that's a song, guys.
Oh, God.
And then I'll actually also be helping with the middle school production, and they are doing Frozen Junior. Whew. Not ready for that one. And they will also be taking on Anne Frank and Me, which I'm very excited about. So all in all, I'll be involved with 7 productions next year.
You got your work cut out for you, sir.
Ooh, I do. I do.
Megan, we'll go to you next.
Our fall show is going to be Radium Girls, which Kenny has helped me do a lot of pre-work for, which I'm very excited about. Our spring musical is going to be The Wizard of Oz. It'll be my second time directing it, and I have a really fun new idea to give it some new life that I'm very excited about. Do a 1-act in the spring, and I'm revisiting another show that I've done many, many times. It's called This Is a Test. That is very, very fun. And then my advanced class, my juniors and seniors in Theater 3-4, they're going to be doing scenes from Almost Maine.
I just did Almost Maine.
Did you?
Yes. If you need projections, I have them.
Oh, cool.
Shoot me an email. I will send you the projections I did for the show.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Almost Maine holds a very special place in my heart. Oh, my God. Yeah. Jackson.
You either love that show or you hate it. There's no in between.
Very much so. There's no in between.
Yeah.
Jackson.
I guess I'm here to represent all those theater teachers out there who like to wait to the last minute to plan their season. Like to see what kind of freshmen come into the room. We have some ideas, and basically, as we're talking, it's just everything we need to do for our juniors and seniors, these kids who have been cheated out of the past 2 years. We just want to do something really, really big. And so we haven't decided exactly what, but that's kind of where we are. And that's kind of usually how I always am. Probably another drawback or another downfall. But I like to see all, including the freshmen, just to get an idea of if I'm not looking at a show because I don't have that one boy and they come in as a freshman, I'm going to be very upset that, I had the chance to do it and I missed it because I was too planned ahead. So that's always been my philosophy. So yeah, sorry guys.
Well, I'll be very candid with the audience. So by the time we're recording this in July, so Jackson has very, 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 very valid reasons. It's July right now. So when this
when are we listening to this? When are we listening?
So when this podcast goes out,
shows planned for the next year already.
Oh Jesus!
So I'm like way ahead of the game here. Like I have costumes in my car right now for my one act for next year because my friend already did the show. I was like, hey, I'm gonna be home. I need those costumes. So I'm very prepared, and like I'm also very open to like changing and altering. But
I think I still have the costumes from this prior year in my car. I'm still in the past. I haven't gone to the future yet.
Honey, we all survived 2020. You take your time. All right. And this is for everyone. What is the one thing you wish the viewers and listeners to know about high school theater? We're going to switch this up. Jackson, you go first.
Yeah, let's this is another one that not bothers me, but there's so many different perceptions about this, but it's the paying to see shows and what ticket sales, what's appropriate for a high school show. And I guess I want the audience to know is that I know a lot of theater teachers try to base it on where they live, what kind of demographics that they're trying to come into the theater. And not every program is here to make money. Most of us are just here to break even so that we can survive next year. And I have been very conservative with raising my ticket prices when everyone else has been raising them. And I don't know, I feel like $15 for a high school show isn't where I want to be as the director, because I feel like you limit people from seeing the show. And if they can't afford high school theater, then what kind of theater are we telling them? I mean, what kind of theater can they afford then? So yeah, a little different probably from a lot of people, but that's kind of what I want my audience and people that come see our shows is that we try to keep it as reasonable as possible, even though it puts us in a bind a lot of the times, but we just want you to be able to see our show.
Dendy?
One thing that I always say to my students when I start a new year or start a new show, I always say, we're not doing high school theater. We're doing theater. And I need you to understand that. When you put that high school in front of it, they always automatically think it's somehow lesser than everything going on around them. And I'm like, yeah, you're in high school, but we're doing theater. And when you come into this room, that's what we do. And I always try to push them to do the best they can, give the best performance they can. Because people are paying to see this, and $5-10 is a lot for somebody that wants to come see these shows. So I always strive to push, like, we're doing theater. Whatever you're doing, you're not doing community theater, you're doing theater. You're doing Broadway, you're doing theater. It's all the same. There's just people at different levels. And those levels at the end of the day don't really matter. People are getting paid more, but whatever. Do your best, where you are, and go see high school theater. Go see these productions, because you might end up seeing someone that's going to be on Broadway one day. Someone saw Audra McDonald before she was Audra McDonald in some high school production. Someone saw Denzel Washington in a high school production, before they became who they are. And you might see the next one there, and you might get to know them, and they might put you in their will. Who knows? Be friends with high school theater people, and you might see a production that's better than anything you've seen on Broadway, because these kids want to be there, they care, and they're there to have fun and entertain you. So I don't do high school theater, I do theater, and I really try to instill that in my students and my audience members.
Megan?
No, my answer piggybacks off of what Michael said, but in a different way. I have the same philosophy. I want my students to understand that we are doing theater, that I have a higher expectation and professionalism for them, despite being high school students. However, what I want the community to know that it is high school theater. These parents come and see the show, they unload everything that they found wrong with it to their kid, and they realize that their kid then comes back to me and tells me everything that their parents saw fault with in the play, and present it as if I did not know that the one kid in scene 5 wasn't loud enough. I know every single flaw in every single show. I know. I have.
Do you want to see my legal pad?
Yeah, I have told that kid a gazillion times that nobody's going to hear what you say. And they feel like they are going to see a professional production, and the success for me is that we got through the show. I mean, just we got through it. We didn't.
Nobody died.
Nobody died. The set didn't fall over. Those are the two things that I want to happen, because I have had a set fall over before.
Oh no.
So yeah, I need the community to know that they are going into a space with teenagers that feel things very strongly, and the encouragement needs to be there, rather than picking apart every single thing that went wrong. Something's always going to go wrong. It's never going to be perfect. They're in school, they're learning.
You know what, Megan? I'm going to piggyback off of you really quick. And I think this is for everyone. The community, hey, if you want, help out.
There you go.
We need set builders.
Call me.
Costumers.
Call me.
Parents of these actors, help out. Don't just come to a show and go, oh, this set looks awful. Hey, guess what? You could have helped with that. You could have painted something. You could have drilled a nail in something.
You can buy a new soundboard for us.
Oh, yes, please do.
Yes.
So, even if these 3 magnificent high school theater teachers are not in your area, go to your local theater. Go to your local high school. Be like, hey, how can I help? You would just for that. They'll be like, oh, here, power drill. Go over there.
Right, and we'll probably give you a free ticket to the show.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Some of them.
Oh, fair enough.
Just kidding. But there are, to go off of that though, there are a lot of times where parents say, do you need anything? And at that moment, I can't even think of what I need. And so to those who really want to help out, just give your number or email to the person and say, hey, if you ever need costumes, or if you ever need last minute help, let me know. Because those are the people that I always go to every show. I'm like, hey, how can you sew a couple costumes for me? Because I know that I have their connection, I have their number. But if you just go up to a theater teacher and you say, how can I help? I'm
like, I don't.
Thanks for offering.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast with me. This has been very informative, and I'm sure the 4 of us has learned more just from talking with everyone, and it has been a true blessing for me. So thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Thanks for having us.
Well, viewers, Continue listening. I'll give my final feedback in just a moment. Kenny's final thoughts. Try this again. All right, my final thoughts. Educators are the unsung heroes of our society. Without them, we would not have the knowledge, the know-how, and the tools to operate as human beings. In my opinion, the arts, music, visual, dance, and performing arts don't get the proper funding and the proper support that it needs. As a couple of my guests stated, it takes so much to put on a theatrical production. I applaud all the arts educators out there that are doing their thing on a shoestring budget. Now, I can't talk about high school theater without giving a shout out to Mrs. Mandy Anderson O'Neill, my high school theater teacher. Thank you for putting up with my obsession of musicals and of Little Shop of Horrors. You have been a true blessing on my life and helped me to develop my love for theater. Now, on the next episode, I will be talking about cabaret with special guest Sean Michael Frazier. Now, until next time, and as always, stay beautiful, you amazing creature. Take care. Thank you for tuning into The Whole Note. The Whole Note is recorded at Roxy Regional Theatre in Clarksville, Tennessee. Intro and outro, The Bumble by Joshua Pyron, and was inspired by The Flight of the Bumblebee. Grading scale notes sung by Marseille Alundra. This podcast is edited and produced by me, Kenneth L. Waters Jr. Tune in next week and discover a new musical. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, stay amazing, you beautiful creature.